Well, hello guys, this is Kothos. Today I got an Unreal World fishing tutorial for you. So the first thing we're going to talk about in this tutorial is the stuff you need to fish with. Tools of the fisherman's trade. So a lot of people think right away rod and reel. So rod and reel is an okay way to fish in this game. If you do the game tutorial, the basic tutorial, it'll give you a free fishing rod at some point. So that's helpful when you want to do a fishing playthrough. But the thing you really want is a net. When you have nets, the more you have, the better off you're going to be. Nets are really reliable. Every 2-3 days, they'll catch you a bunch of fish. At least enough to keep you from starving to death. So in game, there's actually quite a few tools you can use to fish with. The first one we'll start off with is spears. You can do spear fishing. You just walk up to the edge of the water and you hit A, you select your spear, and it'll start to fish. Now, depending on the kind of spear you have, I think does actually affect your chances of catching a fish. But what really affects your chances of catching a fish is whether there's any fish in the area or not. So when you're using the spear, pretty much the only fish you're going to ever catch is a pike. Now, a pike's a pretty big fish, so it'll feed you for a while, and it's a nice catch, but you'll have to do a lot of spear fishing before you're going to catch one. If you're in the summertime or the fall, go to where you see grass and weeds and stuff in the water, and that's usually a good place to fish for pike. So let's go on to the old fishing rod. So the fishing rod is a pretty good tool for fishing. As you would expect, it's called a fishing rod. But the one thing about the fishing rod is it's about where you fish at. So the places to fish you have to be in a little bit of deeper water. If you go into a place like a rapid where there's rocks around the water, a lot of times you can get close enough where you can cast in from shore. But what you really want is a raft. Go find yourself some birch trees, shave a bunch of bark off and turn them into rope. Cut 3 logs down, drag them down next to the water and build yourself a raft. Then you just gotta carve yourself a paddle and you're ready to go. Once you got yourself a raft, that's what you really need to get out in the water and fish. Your fishing rod will be a lot more effective when you're out on the water instead of on the shore. Alright, so next let's talk about the absolute king of fishing is the net. With nets, the only one problem that you have with them is you pretty much need a raft or some kind of boat if you want to actually use them. You can wade out into the water and deploy them that way, but they have to be in a certain deep amount of water. So you got to worry about drowning, and you also got to worry about freezing to death because the water is almost always cold. There's only a few weeks in the summertime where you can actually get out in the water and it's not freezing. So with net fishing, all you gotta do is wait 2 to 3 days and then go paddle out to wherever you put your nets at and retrieve them. Depending on what's going on, you should be able to get somewhere between 1 and 6 fish. Now usually you're gonna catch bream, roaches, and perch. But every once in a while a net's capable of catching a big fish like a trout or salmon. Don't expect to catch more than 1 most of the time. Every once in a while you'll get 2, but that's pretty rare. The main power of the net isn't actually in its fishing ability. The main power is the fact that you just lay it in the water and now you can go do something else. You can build your smokehouse, you can build traps to try to get some extra meat for yourself and stuff like that. So that's where the real power of nets come at, because they fish passively for you. So when you're starting early in the game, the thing you really want to do is trade whatever you can to get nets if you want to do fishing, because you'll really do well as long as you have nets. So there's one more fishing tool out there that I'd like to talk about, and this is called the Lippo. The Lippo is a form of net. It's basically imagine it having 2 wooden handles and it's a net in between it, and you just dip it into the water and then you see the fish in the water and you just pull it out. Now the Lippo is only used for when the fish are spawning. What you'll look for is you'll see on screen it'll say the fish are splashing from a certain direction. When you go there you'll see a little round circle appearing where the fish are at. If the fish are spawning, it's almost a guaranteed catch every time. So when there's trout and bream and stuff like that spawning, man, you can really get yourself quite a bit of fish. The only problem is them spawning seasons don't last all that long. So when you see that happening, get out there and get as many fish as you can. So the next thing we're going to talk about is bait. When you're using a fishing rod, you need to use bait if you want to catch anything. It is possible to catch stuff with absolutely no bait, but it's very rare. Out of all the fishing tools, the only one you need bait for is the fishing rod. I'm going to give you a little list here of what the baits that you can use are and how effective they are. So first off, we're going to talk about berries. Berries are found pretty plentifully in the summertime and especially in the fall. They work for fishing pretty well. The fish you're going to catch with it though are usually perch and roaches. So you're not going to catch too many really big fish, but they are good for catching them. Which leads us into our next kind of bait, which is fish. The fish you catch, you can use for bait. Now you can use any of the fish you catch, and if you use like a trout or a pike or something, it'll just use little pieces of him as he goes, especially if he's cooked. But what you really want to use is use like them roaches, the real little fish. They're basically minnows, and you want to use them to catch the bigger fish. Since they don't give you much nutrition when you eat them anyway, might as well use them for fishing. So our next bait up is mushrooms. I found mushrooms to be surprisingly good. You don't even have to identify them or anything. Just pick some mushrooms off the ground and go out there and fish. You'll catch mostly roaches and bream and perch, but every once in a while you'll get lucky and catch something a little bit bigger. But it's a pretty solid bait. I seem to catch a lot of fish on it. So I'd highly recommend mushrooms. Just while you're wandering around, pick a couple up, put them in your pocket, throw them on your hook. So the next kind of bait here that I think works pretty well is meat. You can use any kind of meat, raw or cooked, and it seems to catch fish. It seems to only ever catch like the medium-sized fish show, like bream and perch and stuff like that. So our next bait is actually two baits. It's bread and flour. It's basically the same thing. I found out of them too. I think flour works better. I don't know why. I just feel like I have a lot more success with flour than I do with bread. But you can certainly use the bread as well. It works plenty well to catch the littler fish. And that's what both of them catch. About the same thing as meat. They'll catch like the medium fish and small fish, and that's about it. So let's talk about where to catch fish at. I've found that the best spot of anywhere is usually the ocean. It's usually pretty consistent in catching fish. You can catch a decent amount of fish. If you live next to the coast, one of the issues you'll have when you're fishing is if you keep fishing in the same spot all the time, eventually the amount of fish you catch will get less and less until you're not catching anything. So if you go out to the ocean, you can use your raft to sail all over the place and you can keep setting your nets up in different places so that you're not overfishing one particular place. So I highly recommend living next to the ocean. Any ocean tile, sea tile works really well for fishing. The next place we'll talk about is all the lakes you see dotted around the map. Since the size of the lake definitely seems to matter. The smaller lakes usually only have smaller fish. I don't think they have them. You might catch a trout, but that's about it. But the bigger lakes will have salmon in them for sure, and trout. And that's what you really want, because those are big fish that can feed you for a long time. Now, everywhere has pike. You can catch pike anywhere. But as far as the lakes go, that's another good place to set up your base right next to a lake. Plenty of water to drink. Ready place to go do lots of fishing. However, our next place for fishing, which are rivers and streams that you find around the map, are probably about the best place you want to go fishing at. And when I say the best place to go fishing, I really mean the best place to set up your camp is near a river. The reason why you want to do that is a lot of the fish that spawn will come up the rivers to spawn. That's where you can catch a whole bunch of them in spawning seasons. So that's the three basic locations that where you can fish at. There's also, on the rivers themselves, there's rapids. I found the rapids usually aren't very good for fishing. You can catch some fish here and there, and when you do, it's usually a big one, but it doesn't seem to be as reliable as it is in other areas. One of the things I noticed when I'm playing this game is that when I'm doing rod and reel fishing especially, but it works with a net too, is look for pieces of land that like jet out into the water and set up your nets or fish right on the points to them areas, and that's a really good spot to fish. I usually have lots of luck fishing there. Try to pinpoint certain places like that. Another good spot is when you see a rock out in the water and there's deep water close to it. I've had a lot of luck in them kind of areas too.